One of these brands built its first bicycle out of leftover rifle barrels. Another invented the electric bike entirely, and one of them, a name millions still trust, hasn't actually been Japanese for almost 30 years. Today we're ranking 8 Japanese e-bike brands from worst to best in pure build quality. Number 1 earned it the hard way. Number 8. Peltech. The story starts in 2011 in Sakai, an industrial city on the edge of Osaka famous for centuries of blacksmiths and knife makers. There, a small company began developing electric assist bicycles for other brands to put their names on. For years, Peltech stayed invisible. Then in 2018, it stepped out from behind the curtain and started selling under its own name, direct to customers online, with no dealer network and barely any advertising. Cutting out the middleman is the entire business model, and it is exactly where the low price comes from. The formula is simple. A folding 20-inch frame that slides into a Japanese apartment hallway, a Shimano 6-speed drivetrain, a battery in your choice of 8 or 12 amp hours, and a front hub motor supplied by Nidec, the Kyoto company whose small electric motors spin inside hard drives and appliances all over the world. Every bike gets a full inspection before it ships, and the assist system carries the same official type certification the mainstream brands display. By 2022, Peltech was moving around 20,000 bikes a year through Amazon Japan, many of them at roughly half the price of the big domestic names. So why does it last? Because build quality is exactly where the savings come from. The frames are heavier and plainer. The motor sits in the front wheel and pulls you along, instead of a mid-drive unit, reading your pedal pressure and multiplying your effort. Cables run outside the tubes, and the components are chosen to hit a price point, not to survive 10 years of daily school runs. None of that makes Peltech a bad company. For a student or a commuter on a tight budget, it might be the smartest buy on this entire list. But this is a ranking of build quality, and on that scale, an honest budget bike still finishes at the bottom, which tells you something about the 7 names above it. And keep that front wheel motor in mind, because the same idea shows up again near the top of this list, executed in a way almost nobody saw coming. Number 7. Asahi. Asahi began in Osaka in 1949, and not as a bicycle company at all. It was a toy business. Over the decades, it transformed into cycle-based Asahi, the largest bicycle retail chain in Japan, with hundreds of stores across the country, a listing on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and a repair stand humming in every single shop. Somewhere along the way, Asahi decided that selling everyone else's bikes wasn't enough and began commissioning its own private label electric assist bicycles, built to its specifications by contract factories, mostly overseas. In 2013, it opened Japan's first store dedicated entirely to electric assist bikes in Toyonaka, just north of Osaka, and it now runs a trade-in program buying back old bicycles and reselling them refurbished. But here's the detail most buyers miss about Asahi. The bikes themselves are competent and forgettable. Sturdy aluminum step-through frames, dependable mid-range assist units, sensible baskets, lights and locks. Nothing fails early and nothing surprises you. What Asahi is really selling is the network. Buy one of their e-bikes and there is a certified mechanic within cycling distance of most homes in Japan, which quietly matters more than any spec sheet the day your controller acts up in year 6. That is also exactly why it sits at number 7. Asahi is a retailer first and an engineer second. The company doesn't wind its own motors or develop its own battery cells. It writes a specification, and a factory somewhere fills the order. That approach gets you a dependable bike. It never gets you a great one. The next brand on this list understood great engineering all the way to its bones, which makes what happened to it genuinely hard to watch. Number 6. Fuji. This one is the heartbreaker. Fuji was founded in 1899 by Okazaki Kyujiro, took its name and logo from Mount Fuji, and by the late 1920s, it had become the most popular bicycle brand in the entire country. It built winning machines for Japan's brutal Kirin racing circuits, sold bikes in America through department store catalogs, and pushed drivetrain design hard enough to launch one of the first mass-produced 12-speed bicycles in the world. When Tokyo hosted the Olympic Games in 1964, Fuji's own chief engineer designed the machines for the Japanese national cycling team. For most of a century, the mountain on the badge meant exactly what it promised. Then the yen surged in the early 1990s, and building anything in Japan suddenly cost a fortune. Fuji held out longer than almost anyone, one of the last major brands still manufacturing at home, and it paid dearly for that loyalty. Its American distributor went bankrupt in 1997. The Japanese parent company, Nichibei Fuji, collapsed the following year. The name, the logo, and a century of goodwill were bought out of bankruptcy by Advanced Sports International, a company headquartered in Philadelphia. Taiwanese investors took major stakes. Then the American parent itself went bankrupt in 2018, and the brand changed hands yet again. And no, I'm not making that up. The brand named after Japan's sacred mountain has been passed around like a baton for an entire generation. Today, a Fuji e-bike is a perfectly respectable machine, designed in America and welded in factories in Taiwan and China. The build quality is fine. Global, competent, fine. But not a single bolt of it is Japanese, and it hasn't been since the 90s. Fuji sits at number 6 as a warning. A badge can survive almost anything. What the badge once stood for can't. The next company nearly met the same fate. It just found a much stranger second life. Number 5. Maruishi. Maruishi's story begins in Yokohama. Most accounts say in 1894, though the early records are murky enough that historians still argue about the date. Its badge, wonderfully, is a kangaroo. The best theory says Maruishi bikes were famous for hauling heavy loads the way a kangaroo carries its young, and so the little marsupial ended up stamped on mudguards, bells, and cranks all over Japan. Don't let the mascot fool you. In the late 1970s, working alongside Suntour and Sanyo, Maruishi built what may have been the first electronic derailleur system in the world, called the Perfect Change, with an electric shift lever wired to a battery box on the rear carrier. That was decades before electronic shifting conquered professional racing. At its peak, the company claimed 4 factories and the capacity to build 1 million bicycles a year, quietly welding frames that American mail-order brands sold under their own stickers. This was a company with genuine engineering nerve, and traces of it survive in odd places. Like the shaft-driven city bikes Maruishi still offers, a chainless design most of the industry abandoned decades ago. Then came 2004, a bankruptcy, and an ugly scandal in the boardroom. The brand was rescued 2 years later, but by a Chinese parent company in Tianjin, and that is where most Maruishi bikes have been built ever since. The current electric assist models, mostly city bikes and child carriers, are honest, well-sorted machines with the old load-hauling DNA still visible in their thick racks and long wheelbases. The design thinking still comes from Tokyo, the welding doesn't. So Maruishi lands at number 5, higher than Fuji because the Japanese design bloodline never fully broke, lower than the names above it because a heritage head badge and hands actually building the bike in Japan are two very different things. Number 4. Miyata. The gunsmith who repaired that bicycle was Eisuke Miyata, and the job changed his life. A year later, his factory built its first complete bicycle, drawing the frame tubes with the same techniques used for rifle barrels, because that was the steel his workers knew best. In 1892, the Crown Prince of Japan, the future Emperor Taisho, ordered a Miyata bicycle of his own. Not bad for a side business. The company would go on to build Japan's first mass-produced motorcycle, pioneer the triple-butted chromoly frame tubing the whole industry later copied, and in 1990, put Greg Herbold on the top step of the very first downhill mountain bike world championship aboard a Miyata Ridge Runner, and that name never died. The Ridge Runner lives on today as Miyata's electric mountain bike, a carefully finished machine built for Japan's forest trails and mountain switchbacks, developed by a company now run from Kawasaki, just south of Tokyo. The same company, by the way, also builds fire extinguishers and some of the most respected unicycles on Earth, which might be the most Miyata sentence possible. Beautiful welds, circus equipment, and disaster preparedness under one roof. There is a complication, though. Panasonic actually held a large stake in Miyata starting in 1959. That stake was sold off in the 2000s to a fire engine maker, and in 2010 Merida of Taiwan began buying in. Today Merida holds the controlling majority, and the lineup has shrunk to a boutique whisper of what Miyata once was. The craft remains real. The flagship e-bikes remain genuinely lovely. Number 4 then, the highest position a brand can earn on craftsmanship alone once the scale and the independence are gone. And if Miyata had somehow kept that independence, the top 3 of this list might look very different. Number 3. Bridgestone. Yes, that Bridgestone. The largest tire company on Earth has been building bicycles in Japan for generations, and its e-bike division might be the most underrated engineering shop in this entire ranking. Exhibit A is the TB1E, a commuter e-bike that looks completely ordinary and absolutely is not. Remember Peltech's front hub motor at the bottom of this list? This is the same basic layout with a serious research budget behind it. The motor sits in the front wheel while your legs drive the rear, so the bike is effectively two-wheel drive, tuned to feel less like a motor pushing you and more like something gently towing you from ahead. Hold the left brake lever on a long downhill, and the front motor flips into a generator, feeding charge straight back into the battery while you coast. The range claims sounded optimistic, around 130 kilometers on a single charge in eco mode. So a Japanese reporter put it to the test. riding a TB1E from the office towers of Shinjuku all the way across the Kanto Plain to the fishing port of Choshi, roughly 130 kilometers, and rolled in with battery to spare. That's not a typo, by the way. A commuter bike priced around 130,000 yen at launch, with a proper lock built into the frame, was outranging machines that cost 3 times more. Then there is the family side. Bridgestone's Ebike series is a fixture outside kindergartens across Japan, built like a small truck and loaded like one, and its long-running Asista commuter line has hauled office workers through Japanese cities for decades, with some models swapping the chain for a quiet belt that never needs oil. For years, the company even borrowed drive units from Yamaha before betting everything on its own two-wheel drive system, which tells you exactly who it considered the benchmark. Bridgestone takes number 3 because the engineering is genuinely inventive and the construction is tank solid. The only reason it climbs no higher is that the 2 names above it define the entire category. Number 2, Panasonic. Before Konosuke Matsushita built one of the largest electronics companies in history, he was a boy apprenticing in a small bicycle shop in Osaka. He never forgot it. In 1923, his young company released a bullet-shaped battery lamp for bicycles, the product that first put the future Panasonic on the map. So when Panasonic Cycle Technology was founded in 1952, this was not a corporation dabbling in bicycles. This was the founder going home. That history shows in how the bikes are made. Panasonic is the only brand in Japan producing the frame, the motor, and the battery cells all inside its own group, with the same battery expertise that feeds electric cars going into the pack on a school run bike. The results speak plainly. Panasonic has spent roughly 2 straight decades as the best-selling electric assist brand in Japan, at times holding more than half the entire domestic market. Stand outside any Tokyo elementary school at 8 in the morning and count the Gyuo child carrier bikes lined up at the gate, each one certified safe for carrying 2 kids. That is what a market leader's fleet looks like. The range runs from the VV shopping bikes, whose 16 amp-hour batteries stretch to roughly 100 kilometers in long mode and whose rear wheel locks release at the touch of the power switch, no key required, up to the Exialt Sports line for weekend riders. The frames are welded thick, the wiring disappears into the tubes, and the batteries simply keep working year after year, which is the least glamorous and most important sentence in this whole video. So why is the brand that dominates the market not number 1? Because one rival did something Panasonic never can. It invented the machine itself. Number 1. Yamaha. In 1988, inside Yamaha Motors headquarters in Iwata, a small team started work on a strange idea. A bicycle whose motor would never drive the wheel on its own. Instead, a torque sensor would read the pressure of the rider's foot on the pedal moment by moment, a speed sensor would track the wheel, and a controller would add motor force in exact proportion, so the bike simply made you stronger. Getting that to feel natural nearly broke the project. Too abrupt, and the bike lurched. Too gentle, and the motor felt dead. The engineers spent 5 years tuning the handoff between human and machine, then had to convince the Japanese government that this new vehicle was legally still a bicycle, a negotiation that quietly shaped e-bike law around the world. In November 1993, the Yamaha Pass finally went on sale in 3 prefectures: Kanagawa, Shizuoka, and Hyogo. The name stood for Power Assist System, and it was the first mass-produced electric assist bicycle on the planet. Every e-bike you have ever seen on any continent descends from that machine, and Yamaha never stopped. A detachable battery arrived in 1995, back when rivals were still bolting packs to frames. The bikes spread through Japan's neighborhoods, carrying parents and children up hills that used to defeat them. Sport e-bikes followed under the YPJ name. From 2013, Yamaha began exporting its drive units to other manufacturers, passing 5 million units within 6 years, which means countless European e-bikes carry a Japanese heart without ever saying so on the frame. In 2020, the Japanese government formally honored the PAS for creating an entirely new category of vehicle. The bikes themselves are developed with the same testing culture Yamaha applies to its motorcycles, and it shows in the details no spec sheet captures. The way the assist fades out at the legal limit without a shudder. The way a 10-year-old PAS still wakes up on the first press of the button. Number 1 was never really in question. Yamaha didn't just build the best Japanese e-bike. It built the first one anywhere, then spent 30 years refusing to let anyone catch up. Which brings this ranking full circle. The story opened in a Tokyo gunworks, with rifle barrels becoming frame tubes. It ends in Iwata, with a torque sensor measuring the push of a single human foot, 100 years apart, and it is the same instinct. take the craft seriously, whatever the object happens to be. That is what Japanese build quality has always really meant, and it is why half these brands survived wars, bankruptcies, and foreign buyouts with their names still on the head tube. Now, every ranking is an argument. If you would have put Bridgestone on top, or you own a Peltech that has outlived every prediction in this video, the comments are open, and honestly, that is half the fun.